Hello and good afternoon to everyone and all present over here. My name is Armin Chopra and I am the co-host for this fantastic session on the topic Youth and Social Development. We have our three respected speakers in the panel and one moderating today and would be discussing and giving their views on the topic. Before further ado, I want to invite our first speaker in the panel, who is the founder and CEO of Light Lab, which makes science education fun and engaging for children and builds the capacities of teachers to create experience-based learning environments. Please welcome Mr. Levitt Somarajan.
Hi.
Our second speaker in the panel leads the Ashoka Youth Years program in South Asia, and in her role, she leads the efforts to search, select, and build a community of teen changemakers and institutional partners to help society reimagine a world where every young person can grow practicing to be a changemaker. Please welcome Ms. Shruti Nair.
Hi everyone.
Our third speaker in the panel is a social entrepreneur, tech enthusiast, music enthusiast, biotech researcher, and founder of Silai Ghar. Please welcome Mr. Vasudev Mishra.
Hi.
Our fourth speaker and the moderator for this session is CEO of Clean, a non-profit committed to support, unify, and grow impact-driven clean energy enterprises in India. With a network of 220 plus social enterprises, it is considered as the industry body for the decentralized renewable energy sector of the country. Please welcome Mr. Advait Joshi.
Hi, thank you.
I would now like Mr. Advait Joshi to take over the session from here.
Great. Thank you, Armin, so much for the introductions. I'm delighted to see that we have quite a few people sparing their time on a Saturday to talk about such an important topic. And to set context for this topic, I would like to start with a poll, which I'm just sharing on the screen, and the audience can just punch in yes, no on their platforms as well. Uh, so the question is very simple. Uh, are you older than 28 years? So I would like to know what kind of audience we have over here. Do use the buttons yes and no for the same. Now, before I introduce or invite our eminent speakers to come and talk about their journeys or a small, quick one-line introduction to their experience, I would like to set context of the gravity of today's discussion to two slides. The first slide is very simple. It talks about India's estimated median age today in 2020. As you can see, we are 28 years old, and hence the poll in that fashion. And by 2050, we expect our India's median age to hit 38 years. What it means is that today's youth will be in the driving seat of the country over the next couple of decades. It's very important. Second slide, as you can see on the screen, is from the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report. And what you see over here is risks that have been anticipated in terms of likelihood and in terms of impact. If you see closely, 2011 is the first time that the risks for climate change also started seeing. Till then, 2008, where probably many of us have graduated, those did not exist. But if you look at 2020, it is filled with red and green, which is the environmental and societal challenges. So what we are doing is we are making, again, today's youth address the challenges of such high magnitude. And that is what I want to bring to light in today's conversation. So let's take a deep breath. And I would like to now invite our panels to come and speak and share their thoughts as well. Uh, a quick sense in terms of how the discussion will be structured. We will, after the introductions of the panelists, we'll be doing two rounds of questions for each of the panelists, and we'll spare 15 minutes for the audience to ask their questions to the panelists as well. I request the panelists that please keep your first round of introductions just to about a minute, and then subsequent questions to about 3 minutes for your responses. Uh, Let me start with Shruti. Would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Advait. I'm good evening, everyone. I'm Shruti from Ashoka. I've been working in the impact space for more than a decade now. Currently, I'm leading the youth program in South Asia for Ashoka Innovators for the public. As many of you might know, Ashoka is one of the largest networks of social entrepreneurs in the world. Our founder, Mr. Bill Drayton, started the organization in 1980 to support world's leading social entrepreneurs. In fact, Bill coined the word social entrepreneurship. So for us, a social entrepreneur is someone who from deep within is committed to the good of all, and so is his or her work. Social entrepreneurship really is about bringing a fundamental change in the pattern or mindset to eradicate or address an existing social problem at a systems level. So our main role at Ashoka in the last 40 years has been to select some of the most inspiring social entrepreneurs of the world. We have supported over 4,000 social entrepreneurs so far by awarding them the Ashoka Fellowship. And I'm very excited to be a part of this panel today. And congratulations to the organizing team for putting this together. It is very timely, to say the least, that we have more and more spaces to exchange ideas and approaches to work with our young people in a more effective way. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Shruti. I know Ashoka is doing some exciting work, and so are its entrepreneurs or young fellows. In fact, both of the other speakers that we have, Luit Somrajan and Vasudev Mishra, both are Ashoka fellows, if I'm not wrong. So let me now bring Luit onto the screen. Luit, would you like to share a little bit about your work and yourself?
Thank you, Shruti, and thank you, Advait. Very good evening, all of you. My name is Levitt. I am founder of Life Lab. So we make science education fun and engaging for children in schools. So Life Lab was founded when I was 24 years back in 2012, wherein I was teaching in one of the affordable private schools in one of the slum areas in the outskirts of Pune. And from there, the journey started. It has been now 9 exciting years of that journey, and we have worked with close to like 6.5 lakh children approximately across 11 states in the country, working with state governments, working with the numerous NGO partners, as well as the philanthropic and corporate foundations. So.
Great, thanks a lot, Luit. I think very important work, especially since you're working with schools, teachers, and that is the youth. I mean, they are the ones who are mentoring the youth of our future. So good to see that. May I now request our youngest within this panel group to come and speak. So Vasudev, may I invite you onto the screen, please?
Hi everyone. Thank you, Advait. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Vasudev. I am 21 years old, social entrepreneur, working in the field of women entrepreneurship, women empowerment and livelihood. My enterprise is called Silagram. We work on basically giving employment to the ladies in the rural areas. We upcycle garment waste out of garment factories, and we make them into accessories and usable products and wearables. And for that, we are providing sustainable livelihood as well as upcycling the textile waste in this country, which is a huge issue, and providing livelihood to the people. So it's been 2 years now that we have started this initiative, and it's going on with 100 plus women joined our initiative, currently working as full-time workers, and our team is going to grow as the time passes.
Wow, that's amazing to hear, Vasudev. Quite exciting. So just to give the audience a big background about what the polls say. So we have 55% of the audience, which is sitting above 28 years, good, and there are 45% which are lower. Now, good because 55% are the ones who we want to influence because they are the ones who become create the enabling environment for youth in our country or in their networks. And the 45% people over here, we are glad to influence them or help them pivot their ambitions to continue working in the social development. So I would like to now sort of pose questions specific to our speakers, and then take this forward into a further discussion. Let me start with Lewitt this time. So you're a social entrepreneur and you work closely with schools and young crowd. But as a child, when you were young yourself, did you imagine yourself to be working in the development sector? And what pivoted or what triggered you to be in this space?
Very interesting question. Thank you, Advait. First 20 years of, I will be very honest, actually. I came from a very humble background. My father was a public servant. So 20 years of my life, actually, I have been very, dreamt, and I have been spoon fed only with two, three things, actually. Get a very good pay package so that you can go to US, get married, and get a German car. That's it, and that was the road actually I was very mapped to. I went into an engineering college and I was all set to get into a oil refining company. So, but somewhere actually the life trajectory changed, and that how actually the pivot happened back in 2008 when I was a part of a train yatra called Jagrati, wherein actually the whole I got exposed. And that was the first time I heard the word NGO in my catalog, and that just changed completely because it was a 18 days of an exciting journey actually, where we traversed throughout the length and the breadth of the country, almost went to 18 states in the country, and met some amazing social entrepreneurs who have been, including Anshu Gupta, Bankar Roy, and like it just opened up a plethora of like that world to me, where I was like so fascinated that I thought that I will just quit my not take up my campus placement and just jump into this. So that's how that just turn happened. But it is as said, actually, it was not like a very sudden turn. After that, like it was like a 2 years of just window shopping, working with a lot of internship, doing a lot of internships with a lot of education spaces, NGOs, and then came in 2011 and I joined a Teach for India fellowship program, and then worked as a school teacher proper for 2 years in a classroom, actually teaching 30 children. So got a pretty good hands-on experience of what it takes actually, because when I jumped into it, always in any U-turn, actually, it always starts with a very romantic idea. But this journey is very tough, right? Like it is not it, and it should not be that actually you get romanticized by that entire world and and then jump into it, because that won't be very sustainable. So it took my time, right, from 2009 when I graduated to 2013, in fact, like the 4 years actually doing, understanding the stakeholders, the beneficiaries, what values they need, actually what they need, because it is very important that we sympathize and empathize with them, very important, because most of the times we fall into that trap of, we want to give it something, but they don't want it. So actually what they wanted, right? So that is the deepest point actually we need to understand. So it was a journey that started off like that, and in 2013 then the lifelong journey started. So answering to your question, I was not, it was just some courses in my life journey actually that I got exposed to, I was fascinated by it, then took my time, understood about it, reflected, and that calling happened, and that got ingrained in a due course of the time.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Lewitt. I think what you pointed out is very important. I agree. I think exposure to societal problems outside your cushy, apartment and office, exposure to those are really important for you to pivot or make that strong call or a decision or to step outside. But let me also come back on some of the things that you mentioned, which is platforms like Jagrati Yatra and Teach for India. I have seen many young students who are planning to pursue something else or corporate cushy jobs have decided to enter and stay committed to the development sector, which is very exciting. So just a quick call out to the audience. While we are having first couple of rounds of questions with our speakers, if you have any comments, any queries, please do post it on the chat box and the questions box. We may not take it up right away. We will take it towards the end, last 15-20 minutes. That will help us also curate some of this conversation. So let me now move to Shruti again. So Shruti, Ashoka Fellows, there are 3,500 of them across, and they're doing some magnificent work. Also, more than 50% of them have started their journeys as young as what Vasudev is, probably even younger. So, what are the enabling, factors that help these young champions grow into the social entrepreneurs of, to create that impact? And how does Ashoka play that role?
Sure. Thanks, Advait. I think to answer that question, I think if I just go back a little bit, and with decades of experience of working with Ashoka Fellows who are leading social entrepreneurs in the world, we have had many learnings, right? And one of the most powerful learnings has been that the world we live in needs a new framework. We need to empower everybody and move from a place where only a few lead to a world where everyone leads. And that we at Ashoka believe would be an everyone a change maker world. Another learning for us was also that majority of our Ashoka fellows started through their teen years, which is between the age of 12 and 20. Which just means that these Ashoka fellows found their inner power to bring change much earlier in life. And we realized that, like any other skills, the skill set and the mindset of a change maker is also developed at a very young age. So then the question in front of us was, how do we sort of make everyone in the society see this new reality, right? For which we need to first have our young people grow differently. Now, we realize that society always needs role models to start acting differently. So if the goal was then that every young person, while growing up, continuously practices to be a change maker, then the first step for us was to identify these role models for our young people. So we at Ashoka believe that by sort of identifying and supporting inspiring teen change makers as Ashoka Young Change Makers, and one of them is here with us, working to solve a problem, we are creating a new type of role models for our young people who have the potential to impact an entire generation. Now, our support as Ashoka primarily is around building a like-minded peer community for our change makers, who not just draw support and inspiration from each other, but are also a community of co-leaders in building an everyone a change maker world. We also work closely with these change makers to amplify their ideas, their work, and their impact. So in some cases, we help them build alliances with seasoned social entrepreneurs. We also work with this community in influencing other stakeholders of the society, such as schools, parents, the community at large, to completely reimagine how young people are growing up. So we're constantly looking for people who want to help others get their change-making powers, and our Ashoka Young Changemakers are extremely committed to this idea.
Great, that's quite interesting to know, because I myself, being an social entrepreneur right out of college, I did find a lot of challenges for me to grow into what impact I wanted to really create, and it was difficult to find such kind of environments or supporting ecosystems who would not just help us understand the problem, but also find the right solutions, look at the right resources, mentors, or even right platforms to shine. I think that's really important for a young change maker. Thank you so much for sharing that. Vasudev, let me come to you now. Before our conversation over this, you mentioned that you claim to go to college, but as much as I understand, you do many other things on the social development front. So, what I want to know is what inspired to do this at such a young age? Because I believe uh, colleges don't really focus on something like this. What made you take this step?
I think I should start from the day when I entered the college from my 11th grade. I came back from United States after completing 1 year from an exchange program. Came back, realized that community needs people to bring change, to do some new things in the society, which is helping and solving the problems. So there it all started. I started working with NGOs, but at that time I was not feeling that, urge of doing things. I used to go for the sake that I want to do some social service. But when I entered my college, started my first venture. After that, I realized in my hometown, in my neighborhood, people are staying hungry, and this is not happening like some 1,000 kilometers away. This is just a couple of blocks away from my home. I can see people staying hungry for more than 5 days, and that was something which really turned me on. I mean, there it just uh, uh, changed my mindset when I tried myself staying hungry for a day. I couldn't. I couldn't. And that was the point where we thought, how can we solve this problem of hunger in a sustainable way? So my mother is an inspiration for this. She has been training ladies since last 17 years and providing employment, providing opportunities to the ladies by giving them skills, trainings, opportunities in government. But this was not stagnant. We wanted something sustainable and stagnant. So we started from the point in August in 2018 when Maharashtra government of Maharashtra banned plastics. So then we started getting opportunities that bags can be stitched as an alternative. So from there, it all started. From 100 bags, 5 women. In the next 6 months, we increased our team by 15 to 20 women till 5,000 bags, and now we are able to produce in and around per month. Our capacity is increasing. Our team is now 100 plus women in 4 different sectors across Maharashtra, and it is going to increase as per the time comes. And we are upcycling in and around 4 tons of fabric from the garment companies which we are receiving and textile mills. So I think this is all because of empathy, which has played a very vital role for me to understand the problem. Until and unless I don't put my feet into that shoe, I won't understand how big is that shoe. It's the same case where I try to understand how it is to how it is like to stay hungry for a day or two, and it's not just easy. And today's condition in this pandemic, where on the field where we are working, supporting migrant workers, we have felt that we cannot walk for at least 10 kilometers in one go, and people are walking thousands of kilometers. So I guess it needs empathy for everybody to realize the problem and design solutions.
Great, great, interesting. So I completely agree with you, Vasudev. The fact that empathy, which is to be associated with the cause, and like you mentioned, I think immersing yourself into it as well to understand the problem better will give you a better sense of what solutions may work, what not. This has definitely been helpful. I'm cautious of the time that we have, so let's quickly get into the second round of questions. I see a couple of questions also coming up on the chat and the question box over here. But this question is more open for all three panelists, and I would like maybe each of you to share your feedback on it. The question is at a more systemic level. So, as a young entrepreneur or as a young social entrepreneur, what can go wrong? What are the big deterrents that you have observed in your personal journeys or through your networks, which can derail a young champion away from social impact? And any thoughts on whether something has worked to fix it?
Well, I guess it starts with a person being emotivist. A lot of times, people like me, when I started, it was emotions which was dominating my decision making process. But as the time passes, I was learning new things. But yes, there were challenges and hurdles. For example, there were financial crises where we felt in the starting, in the beginning, like how we can procure machines and stuff. Then there was community, which was an again huge problem to make people understand women should work and they can work because it's their right. and the families who were not letting the women to step out of their homes. Such challenges came up at some points. I Yes, we do feel demotivating or feel like this is not working on. But then again, there is a point where you have to think in a relativist way by comparing two different situations, understanding the depth of it. I guess such things always helps us to move along with the challenges. For example, in these days of pandemic, it was very hard for us to move along with the time and the market, but we did not give up. We tried finding alternatives like producing masks and giving minimum wage to the ladies by giving them work for such jobs. So it kept us going. But yes, there are challenges where we do feel demotivated, we do feel not to be at a point we're not successful. These are some points, but yes, there are some challenges.
Great. And I'm sure, I mean, you have such a long road up ahead, and there'll be much more learnings as well for you. Coming to Shruti, Levitt, would any of you also would like to share? Shruti, you have experience with you of many Ashoka Fellows. Any insights from there?
Yeah, Advait. I think from what I'm seeing as we move forward, the lines are sort of blurring on what is the social impact sector, right? We're moving in an era where every institution and organization, irrespective of their sort of operative model, will soon ask how they are maximizing impact along with the other objectives that they're working on. Now, if you look at it from that framework, I would like to slightly modify your question maybe on what are the challenges for a young person to have an impact mindset, right? And the skill sets to thrive in. Now, to understand that, we have to understand that we are living in these extraordinary times, right? Where the world is constantly changing and is moving from being organized around repetition to being organized around change. We no longer live in a world where one could thrive just by learning one skill and then repeating it efficiently for the rest of their life. We have income distributions getting worse everywhere and have a rapid rise of sort of an us versus them narrative. And as we look deeper, we see a new inequality dividing the world, one where some people have the sophisticated skills to play in this everything changing new world, and another where people have not had the opportunity to learn and practice these skills. So the world now increasingly sort of values contributing to and adapting to change, which is a very different world from the earlier world where success was considered in repeating one particular skill well. And I think one of our greatest observations and learnings has been that young people who have identified their idea, built their team, and created their impact have found an incredible power within them, which only contributes to their success, irrespective of what they choose to do in life. In fact, an internal Ashoka study revealed when someone starts innovating very early in life, they're 3 times more likely to end up in a position of high leadership, and 4 times more likely to become a successful entrepreneur. I think what is important to kind of internalize is that young people who step up early and challenge the existing youth culture and broader expectations are powerful role models for others and have a very special and deep impact on the adults around them. So these young people who know that he or she is a change maker, they continue to work on that ability of theirs on solving a problem and changing their reality for the good of all.
Interesting. I think that kind of motivation or continued motivation and first step forward is very important for for you to continue on this journey. Great. May I request Levitt to share your experience, personal as well as I know that you've worked with TFI and others where you find similar-minded people.
Advait, couple of things. First thing is very early into, at least in my journey of Life Lab, I realized that It is not going to be a 2020, it is going to be a test match. So the thing is, when that mindset and the orientation gets shifted, that 1 or 2 sessions, and you have to expect that 1 or 2 bad sessions in that long haul of 5 days, right? Like we are going through one of those bad sessions actually in that phase of the journey. But at the end of the day of that, if you take that 15 sessions over the 5 days, it doesn't matter, right? The whole idea then becomes to that brings me to that second point. How much belief you have in the idea that you want to pursue. Second thing is, do you have that kind of the skill sets and the, that ability to mobilize the people who you can work with and who can complement with your skills. So at least in my case, I would like to say that actually, that ability of an entrepreneur to start attracting and working with the people who are better than you is very, very important in any entrepreneurship journey, because otherwise the entire intelligence of that entire the organization doesn't enhance. So these are the couple of things actually that I realized very early into the entrepreneurial journey. Skills I'm not very worried about, because as the organization transitions from a startup phase to the growth phase to the scale phase, you need to hone the different kind of skill sets, and your roles also change, right? Say, for example, 8 years back, actually, I had a cobbler friend. I literally used to sit with that cobbler friend and used to make the science models. I used to sketch and he used to make actually science models out of the rubber shoe soles. Today, we have a manufacturing facility. We have an R&D team who designs it. So my role, my transitions, the way actually now I operate, or the effort and the time that I spend and the nature of that changes. So there are different kinds of skills that you will adapt to. But the third most important thing is actually during the phase of this growth trajectory, it is extremely important. It is important that how mindful and aware we are about ourselves, right? Because the rate at which the organization will grow and the rate at which you as a person will grow, there will be a deviance. It may not be, it is completely impossible, mathematical impossibility that the rate at which the organization may grow may match up with your skills or the mindsets or the growth at which you as a social entrepreneur will be growing. So hence it becomes extremely important that you attract that kind of right talents, who can complement you, and then you are able, because it is the most difficult part to work with the people actually who have the different kind of the strengths or the different perspectives and the orientations. So that adaptability of yours becomes the most crucial thing. And at the end of the day, don't take it very personally. The things like you are working for a very great cause. Any idea that you're working in, actually, it is great. It is going to create a lot of impact. But at the end of the day, actually, there needs to be that kind of a slight detachment, because if you start actually relating your identity with that, the work that you're doing, it starts getting corrupted and actually adulterated.
Great. Thanks a lot, Fluid. I think this is, it's something that I personally correlate to as well. I myself being, again, a social entrepreneur. The reason I stepped out and started looking for a job or and fixed income for myself was primarily because I didn't really find the right set of co-founders or teams to work together at that moment. And I think if I had pursued on continuing with that habit, I wouldn't have reached where I am today to continue working in the development sector. So great. I think I'm sure many people in the audience will find such correlations. So one last question before we jump into requesting the audience to also participate in questions is, with considering the current situation, COVID-19, I think none of us can really escape it. But none of us can stop from about thinking what will happen next. So as social entrepreneurs yourselves, do you have any specific advice that you would like our audience to take to think about the next leg of our journey in impact creation? Again, I want to keep it open to all of the speakers, so feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I think maybe I can go first and just share our experience with our fellows and our young change makers. So I think largely Advait, the pandemic has actually reinforced our belief that in this world of change, it is important that every young person practices to be a change maker, which essentially means that our definition of success in education and growing up has to fundamentally change. Our education itself has to change, right? And every young person has to have the skills of being a change maker to thrive and succeed in this new world. We need to have more young people practicing change maker skills, and we have to help every school, every youth community do this so that it becomes natural for young people to start things. Now, if our young people don't have these change maker abilities, they can't play and win this game in this constantly changing world, right? They will be limited in terms of their ability to contribute, and they will not be able to achieve their true potential. So my message largely to every young person, because I believe each one of them can be champions, is ignore anyone who says you can't change things for the good or you're too young to problem solve, be it during the pandemic or otherwise. Most adults who try to kind of stop you themselves have just not had the experience of being a change maker, and hence the thought of you doing that makes them a bit uncomfortable. Our society needs your creativity, your ideas, and your energy, and we just cannot do without your leadership, young people's leadership. So that's broadly, what we really strongly believe in.
Great, thanks, Shruti. We're getting some really good questions up. So should we take them now? So let me start off with the first one, which is very close to what Shruti you mentioned right now. That youth, how can youth play a role as a change agent? So how can we really talk about it? How can we create that advocacy around this particular topic so that we have more of Levitts as well as Vasudevs as well as Shrutis coming forward? Yeah. Would any of you want to take that question?
Well, I guess I'll take that up. As I have seen in the last 3 years, and now in current times, I'm working with the civic government. I think it is the time where youth needs to realize that they should come forward and take things in their hand at some places where their participation is drastically needed. It should be the new normal for the society, where youth needs to be considered as active, responsible people, because they are the ones, I'll say, we are the ones who will be taking it forward, and we need to know it from the very grassroots level. So to understand that, youth's participation in that process needs to be there from the very beginning. Then and then only we will be able to understand it, we'll be able to work on it, and we'll be able to innovate on it if there is a need of innovation in that process. But in this pandemic, as we have seen, a lot of youth has came forward in innovation, in social work, in helping people. So this is a clear example to or the whole society that this should be the normal now. We need to set new normals where everybody can be a change maker, and they should be a change maker if they see a problem. It's not just a job of some specific people. It's just not the administration who are supposed to do everything, but it's a collaborative effort. Youth, civic body, citizens, and everybody who can come together and do this job.
Great. Levitt, if you would like to add anything, I think you did specifically mention about being aware of the problem. I think that is something that youth can definitely continue to think and play the role of change agent.
Just adding on to Vasudev, like as he said, actually there are a lot of, since it is going to be, we are living in a new normal, there are going to be a lot of opportunities, and I'm very excited and optimistic, and believe me guys, job nahi hai market mein, and even if you get the job, actually you are going to take a 25 to 50% cut anywhere. So you don't have actually, then see that as a great opportunity that you have only, if the ecosystem has been normal, actually, from there, if you are losing something, you are only losing like 25 to 50%. So take that leap of faith, and if you have to do something, this would be the great time actually that we can take that leap of faith. Because at the end of the day, it is all about the leap of faith. It is not the success. You just have to take it and you will figure out the things. And then with the luck, the team, the idea, the stakeholders, actually, the success will be. And as Shruti said, actually, the earlier you start, the chances are that you will succeed. And since the new normal has begun, there will be a lot of problems. And with the problems, there would be a lot of opportunities. And today's youth, definitely, they can give that 2 to 3 years, definitely, because without losing much, because the opportunity cost in today's time is lesser.
Very well said, Louis. I think, I mean, it resounds with the full investment thinking process. Great. The two questions from Shama. So let me just read them out and maybe club them as well. So, what is the safety net that is available for, social entrepreneurs or youth in today's time? Like-minded networks or something like that that can help them scale. And for the youth, who are the influence? Who should be their influence rather? Should it be successful business leaders? Should it be entrepreneurs who are demonstrating new parameters for success? Any thoughts on both these questions?
I think I'll take a shot at it. I think just on who should be the role models, right? I think anybody who is who have given themselves the permission to kind of self permission to see or to act or to keep problem solving, right? Who have worked and on solving a problem not just for themselves but the community around them should be the role models, right? And our larger goal is that every young person sort of looks up to these influencers around them and practices change making as a part of their living. I don't maybe Louis can address the safety net piece, because we really strongly believe that if you find this power within, and if you practice these change maker abilities, you don't even need a safety net, right? You're going to succeed in whatever you do, and it may not be, you may not go on to become a social entrepreneur, and that's fine, and you may be doing something else, but the chances are that you will succeed in whatever it is that you're doing. And also, I think as a society, we need to kind of establish a culture, completely shift the culture rather in our educational system, right? When we first started out with reading and writing as a skill, right? Someone would have asked maybe the same question on, do we need it, or do we need a safety net, or do we really need to? Is it really important? But we had to institutionalize it slowly. So I think similarly, change making and social entrepreneurship, or this is similar to that, right? So most recently, we have seen that with technology, right? And now even our young ones are so comfortable using technology, right? So we need to take those small steps. And each one of us needs to do that. Research shows that for children to learn empathy, 5 to 12 years is the best age, right? While they're growing up, 12 to 20 age is again even better to practice empathy. So we need to start introducing sort of different activities or initiatives as part of our culture in education, and institutionalize it as part of our formal education system. And I think each one of us has a role to play in that, which we actively need to do.
Great, thanks, Ruthi. Louis, Vasudev, any comments from your side?
Well, that's what we are working for now. Is everybody and everyone is a change maker. Where if everybody becomes a change maker, then that safety net or the network completes itself. But yes, that is, if we have that network, it helps like anything. Because when I started my work, for me, change makers were my teachers, were my parents, who enabled me to do it. But it was a time where 80% you will feel the resistance that people will not like it if you step out of the box, if you have something in your mind which you are thinking out of the crowd. And if there is a network to back you up, or if at least there is only one person, if he believes in you or he supports that what needs to be done, I think it can create a huge change. And I'm a living example for it, that in my college, my head of the department believed in me. He allowed me to do things which I had in my mind, and here I am. And I didn't need the whole crowd at that moment. Just needed at least one person to believe in me, and that's all. And now we are looking for a future where everybody should support such change makers, or should support people who wants to create change.
Very well said, Vasudev. Great. There's one more question that has come up. So this is by Kshitij Ingle. Do you all think a syndication model will work in social entrepreneurship? Any thoughts, any comments? And maybe I could also invite Kshitij ji to maybe elaborate a little bit on the question if possible. So I think what I understand from this question is, how can we look at, syndication of various efforts and resources as well for social entrepreneurship model, because access to resources or access to such facilities is something of a challenge for most of the young social entrepreneurs out there. Any thoughts on this? So, for example, in Clean, we also work a lot with young entrepreneurs in the clean energy or energy access space, and we see that most of the times the way they access funds is through a network of financiers, which typically are able to offer small ticket sizes of loans at various models. But there are also different funds available where they can sort of are covered by different credit guarantee schemes and others, which de-risks a lot of that. Similarly, in a way of how they can access technologies as well. Any insights from your side will also be helpful.
I think a part of syndication is also, what we call in the social sector collaboration, right? On how to kind of resource mobilize and how to kind of leverage on networks and all of this. So I think as a young person who's working on social change, you will need support in many different areas at different points in your journey, right? And it is important to be able to have a deeper insight in the community that you're working with. So that you can anticipate some of these challenges and possible ways to solve them. And maybe I can try to address the question both on the funding side and the mentorship and resource support that often young people need, right, from our experience. And funding, tapping into the right sort of funding opportunity depends a lot on your model, right? The problem you're trying to address or the stage you are in, and the funding opportunities that are available largely. And what is extremely critical to be able to on the fundamental in what you want to achieve. It also helps a great deal, when you think about syndication or sort of collaboration, is if you're proactively working towards designing your own fundraising plan, because it helps you sharpen your pitch, articulate and identify and articulate your asks from any relationship, right? Be it any sort of collaborative relationship. And as you work on this pitch, it will also help you tell your story better and reach out to the right funder or the right sort of resource support that you need. And similarly, on the mentorship and resource support side, what is important is to remember that as a young person working on social change, we've seen that oftentimes we hesitate to ask for support. So it is important that you never do that in asking for support and in reaching out. If you find someone who has worked on solving a social problem, like I said earlier, that you feel inspired by, do reach out to them and their team and to learn from their journey, right? And oftentimes, you may end up drawing mentorship support not just from one person, or the syndications or the support from different different sources and different sort of people. So you have to be open to the idea of doing that. And most importantly, I think Vasudev mentioned this, people who believe in you and support you as you get on this journey of solving social problems. So I think I just want to end with saying that any sort of collaboration support that you might need, it's important that you're able to communicate the why of what you're trying to build as much as of the what, right? So focus on the why. All successful social entrepreneurs, who have shared their powerful stories of why they're doing something, or why they're doing what they're doing, their ability to attract people to support through whatever resources that anyone needs support with is just kind of amplifies a lot more.
Great. Wonderful. So, Armin, if I'm not wrong, I think we are spilling over on our time. Do correct me if I'm wrong. But thank you once again to all speakers. Thank you so much, Shruti, Luet, Vasudev, for sparing time, sharing your experience with the audience and me. There's a lot for me to learn as well through your journeys. It was wonderful hearing you, and a big thank you to the audience for being patient with us, sharing your thoughts and questions. It really helped structure our conversations. And once again, thank you, Armin. Thank you for the whole Miraculous team to helping us put together this conversation, a very important conversation, and hope these conversations continue further. Thank you so much once again.
Thank
So
you.
much to the
Bye.
speakers.
Bye.
And thank you, Advait sir, for being a wonderful moderator and having a very interesting session with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you, Advait, Armin. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.